Welcome to Slash Bash, where today I am bringing you some of the best entitled parent Reddit videos of 2021. The time I got my mother to walk right into my door. Shortly after my dad gave me a safe for my money, he also gave me a deadbolt lock for my door with a wall-mounted lockbox that required a code to get the key because my sister threw my safe through my bedroom window. We installed the lock and lockbox together while my mom and sister weren't home. When my sister first walked by my room after coming back, I saw her look at the lock and then go running to get my mom. They both came storming up the stairs to be greeted by my dad and I. The following is paraphrased from what I remember. My mom snaps her fingers a few times and points. "What the hell is that?" "A door lock." "I know what the flip it is. Why is it there?" "Because you never see fit to punish or stop our daughter from stealing from Craggle or ransacking his room. So from now on, the lock stays." "He's only 14 and this is my house. He can't have a lock on the door." "No, this is our house, but last I checked, I paid most of the mortgage and the bills. You hardly pay for anything, and I'm tired of you favoring our daughter so much that Craggle keeps having to suffer for it." "Well, then I demand you tell me the code for the lockbox at least." My dad gave a deadpan stare and said, "I'm not doing that because you've shown I can't trust you anymore." Mom then blew her top and stormed down the stairs. My sister just stood there looking pouty and then slowly walked to her room. Things were good with the new lock, and it became habitual for me to lock it every time I left my bedroom. I saw my sister and mother staring at me on numerous occasions when I input the code to get the key, but I always made sure to use my hand or my body to block their line of sight. They didn't really like that, but there wasn't anything they could do about it. Then one day, late in the month, my sister came begging me for $40 to buy a video game she really wanted. "Why do you keep coming to me to ask for money when you and I both know you'll never pay it back?" "I'll pay it back, I swear." "No, you won't. You spend everything you have and then some each month. And you know you just want to spend all of your allowance rather than pay me back. It's what you always do." "No, I don't." "Well then, how about we test that?" I then went into my room, got a pen and paper, and then handwrote an IOU contract that stated Sis would pay me back the $40 upon getting her monthly allowance. Then I told her the IOU was to be co-signed by Dad as a witness. Always have a witness for contracts, folks. Sis read the paper, then started sniffling. She tore it in half and then ran crying to Mom yet again. It was what she did every single time she didn't get her way. "Mommy!" "What is it, my little princess? What did Craggle do now?" "She wanted to borrow some money, so I asked her to sign an IOU in front of Dad. Then she freaked out." "And why would you do that? She just wanted to borrow a little money." "Would you sign the IOU as well to make sure she pays the money back?" "You little crab, I don't have to sign anything. Now just loan her the money." "Not without a signed IOU." Mom then stands up with her arm out like she's ready to hit me, then retracts it. "You're just like your father. You have to have a paper trail for everything. I hate it." I start walking up the stairs to my room. At this point, Mom, I'd say it's a good thing I'm just like Dad, because it's far better than being just like you and like Sis is, because you never do anything good. "What was that, you little crab?" Then she started storming up the stairs just as I got into my bedroom door and locked it. Now, my mom had a habit of throwing open my bedroom door to yell at me back then. She did one sweeping motion of opening the door while lunging her body forward, and at this time, I'd only had the lock on my door for a little while, so she wasn't used to it yet. I'd locked the deadbolt, and she tried to throw open my door and slammed right into it with a pretty loud thud, and I heard her fall onto the floor and start making noises of crying in pain. She'd slammed her body and face against the door pretty hard. It was an old-fashioned style door made of solid wood. It gave her a fat lip and a bump on the forehead. I opened the door and she was sprawled out and pounding her fists on the floor. "You did this to me, you little crab." "You did it to yourself. You are grounded. Get out of my sight." After that, I called Dad and he just groaned over the phone about the whole situation. He said I wasn't grounded, but I was still in big trouble for goading her, and to just let him deal with her when he got home. I ended up getting a stern lecture from Dad along with added chores and a reduction to my allowance that month, but that was about it. After that day, every time Sis asked me for money, I asked her to sign an IOU. She really didn't like that. You paid for them, so you can pay for us. I took the day off from work yesterday because my nephew's school was closed for the day and I wanted to spend some time with him. My brother and nephew live with me. Here is a quick dirty map of our neighborhood. My nephew is a small kid and he calls both my wife and I mom while calling my brother dad. This has led to him getting teased a bit, especially by entitled mother's son, Jared. Jared is easily 30 pounds heavier than my nephew and a solid half a foot taller, so my nephew is terrified of the kid. As a result, we don't invite that kid to parties or play days. Every other kid on the block is invited, but I refuse to force my nephew to interact with someone he's so afraid of. When the ice cream truck pulls up to our neighborhood, it stops at the very beginning of the V shape on the map. Kids, parents, and anyone else who wants an ice cream go and meet the truck there, so it doesn't have to stop at each house of the 6 houses individually. Yesterday, my nephew was playing in the yard with his friend Kevin, while I and Kevin's dad Joe were trying to keep up with them while enjoying a pitcher of slow gin fizz. All in all, a beautiful day in Middle America. And now the story begins. We hear the unmistakable sound of the ice cream man pulling up the rural route, heading towards our neighborhood. So both the kids, Joe, his wife, my brother, and I all head up to the intersection to grab some soft serve. We get to the truck and I let Joe know that this one is on me. He brought the drinks. So we all get our ice cream, I pay, and then we start to walk away. Before we get more than 20 feet from the truck, entitled mother has placed an order for her and Jared and proclaimed in her best outside voice that Mary, not my real name, will be paying for these. I take a few steps back. Excuse me? I never offered to pay for you. You said this one was on you. I was talking to Joe, not you. That's not fair. Jared was so excited for ice cream and now you're saying he can't have any? Ma'am, he's free to have all the ice cream you're willing to pay for. I'm not buying my son's bully ice cream. How dare you? Then I said to the ice cream guy, sorry for the mix-up, but she's not on my tab. I want to be clear about that. Come on, Jared, we're going home with no ice cream because Mary hates you. I switched to martinis when I got home because flip that. Why did she even come to the truck if she didn't have money on her? I'm starting to understand why her son is such a crappy kid. It's not his fault. He's being trained to be that way. My uncle steals our gas. Let's jump right in. I'm a 26-year-old female and my husband is a 26-year-old male. We've been married for a year now. I've known his family for a while now and we get along with most of his family. There is one family member who we've always had a rocky relationship with, and that's his entitled uncle. Him and his kids have always had a bit of an entitled attitude since I've known them, assuming that other people's stuff is theirs to use without asking. His wife, our aunt, is less of an entitled person, but still has her moments. Although their entitlement has been a bit annoying, we've just put up with it until now. Since overall, they are generally easy to get along with. That's where we get to this past week. Entitled uncle and his entitled son, who is 16, were the main perpetrators of entitlement in this story. We were vacationing at a lake this past week. We do a family vacation every year with a large part of my husband's side of the family, including this entitled dad and his entitled offspring. Our grandparents owned a jet ski and had let the kids in the family use it every year as long as we took care of maintenance and gas for it. Last year, my mother and father-in-law decided it would be nice to buy 2 more jet skis since, surprise, surprise, entitled dad and offspring would not help take care of the jet ski that was shared and never helped pay for gas. It was made clear by my in-laws that the new jet skis would only be used by those who took care of them and only with the explicit permission from my in-laws. So the original jet ski breaks. No biggie. In-laws are fine with the kids using the new jet skis as long as whoever uses it pays for gas and asks each time they want to use it. To no surprise again, Entitled Dad insists that we let Entitled Son take his girlfriend out on the jet ski. The in-laws said yes once, so Entitled Son takes his girlfriend out on the new jet ski, and there were no problems, or so we thought. Girlfriend of the Entitled Son has no boater's license, which is required in the state we live in, and Entitled Son had let his girlfriend drive the jet ski. The next day, we see Entitled Dad walking around our cabin as if he is looking for something. Me wanting to help. Hi, Entitled Dad, do you need help finding something? Yeah, we're looking for gas to fill the new jet skis. I had just rode the new jet skis that morning and knew that the tanks were not near empty, plus I knew that Entitled Dad had not paid for gas and planned to use ours. Well, I just rode those jet skis this morning. The gas tanks were still nearly full when we got back. They shouldn't be empty. Well, they are. Well, did you look inside the seat at the gas container? Entitled Dad looked away from me now. Yeah, we did. My suspicions are raised right now. Entitled Dad has never been the most trustworthy person, and I highly doubt he had asked my father-in-law either to use the jet skis or to take our fuel. After discussing the situation with my husband, we decided that telling my father-in-law would probably be for the best. The next thing I know, father-in-law is outside next to the dock berating Entitled Dad for having the nerve to use our property and steal our gas that he never helped pay for. My mother-in-law agrees it was wrong but wants to keep the peace since it involves her baby sister's family. It was very satisfying seeing Entitled Dad sulking the next morning, and now we hide the keys to the new jet skis so that Entitled Dad and Entitled Son cannot steal from my in-laws again. The goddess almost died because she felt entitled to my ADHD medication. My mother is the definition of entitled. She uses money and connections to avoid rules and laws, expects everyone to cater to her, and never worries about the consequences of her actions. Well, one day her entitlement almost killed her. I had been prescribed Concerta for my ADHD, and while I was at school, my mother decided to try out my medication for herself because she's an idiot and doesn't think that consequences apply to her. She split my medicine in half and only took one side of it. This medicine has two sides to it for a reason. One side is basically pure amphetamines, and the other controls the release of said amphetamines to be absorbed over a span of hours, not minutes. She took the side with just the amphetamines after having her usual 3 cups of coffee first thing in the morning. Long story short, she ended up in the hospital with a dangerous heart arrhythmia and nearly died. Play stupid games. Oh, and the goddess thing? That's the nickname she wants my future children to call her. She doesn't like the word grandma. Entitled stranger at a campground expects me to have a shirt for her kid. So my boyfriend and I went camping this weekend at a campground, and we met this couple and their son, maybe 7 to 11 years old. I don't know, I'm bad at telling kids' ages. While we were setting up our tent, and they were setting up at the plot next to ours. We had some polite small talk, and we mentioned that we bought a tie-dye kit to tie-dye a couple t-shirts while we were there. It was really just a small, cheap tie-dye kit, and we both brought 2 shirts to make. The mother immediately got excited and said her son would love to tie-dye with us later that night. We were caught off guard, but I was sure there'd be some extra dye, and I didn't really care that much, so I said sure. A few hours of hiking and fishing go by, and then we're ready to go back and settle into our campsite, eat dinner, and start making our t-shirts. We round the corner towards camp, and it was as if this kid was waiting for us. He was right at the path and then sprinted back to his campsite. Once we got closer, his mother stomped over to the trail, and this is how the conversation went. "Where have you guys been? We've waited hours." We've been hiking, but he can come use it in a little bit once we set it up." I was totally caught off guard and turned off that she even approached me that way, but I blew it off again. Like, did this lady expect me to alter my plans all day to cater to her kid? We get back to our campsite and I'm about to start dinner, but this woman and her kid are just staring at us. So I decide to just get the dye ready so he can bring his stupid t-shirt over and leave us alone so we can eat in peace. I bring the dye out and they come over to our table empty-handed. Looks great. He's a small or a medium. What? I don't have anything for him to use. I thought you had your own t-shirt that you wanted to dye. No, you are the ones who brought the tie-dye kit. We waited all day for you to get back, and now you're saying you don't even have a t-shirt for him? I don't know what to tell you. We only have 4 t-shirts to make for ourselves. I can't believe you told my son that he could tie-dye and got his hopes up. He waited for you all day. Can he have one of yours? Absolutely not, I said while laughing. It's not funny. Don't laugh at me. At that point, I'm just like, whatever, lady, and we keep snickering at her until they storm back to their campsite, where she starts playing literal death metal music full blast. It's hilarious. This chick was insane, throwing a full-blown tantrum and glaring at us from afar. An hour or so later, the ranger comes over to our tent and said he got a report that we were drinking alcohol. We were drinking alcohol, but they typically don't care unless we're disturbing other campers, and we were just 2 people sitting and eating dinner quietly. I told him what happened and he thought it was hilarious, and I jokingly said that I'd like to make a counter report about Entitled Mother's music. He was like, hell yeah, I'll do that, and went over to her. She threw a fit when he told her to turn that crap down, and I heard her screaming about how we're partying and drinking, and how dare he confront her and not us. Eventually, her husband turned her music off while she was mid-screech. Then she sulked into her tent and never came back out, and the ranger came back over to our site for a beer after dark. We considered calling her poor husband over for a beer too, but decided not to poke the bear. Lol. In our first story, an entitled dad leaves me with his children on a plane. So this happened last weekend. I was flying out of JFK Airport in New York, aka one of the worst airports in the US, trying to not catch the plague. Double mask, flip yeah. When I was in the TSA line, I was surrounded by 2 families, a mom and her son behind me, and 2 parents with 2 boys in front of me. The mom in front of me was tired, like she was sitting on a big carry-on bag while her husband wheeled her about tired. Dad was so focused on mom not falling off the suitcase that the boys were just darting about and trying to play with the boy behind me as well. It's 6:30 a.m. I am on 2 hours of sleep, so the world is just too much for me, but I also worked at a special needs preschool for 2 years prior to becoming a therapist, so I know how to wrangle kids on minimal sleep. I go into crowd control mode, asking the boys about their interests, but reminding them we have to be quiet to talk about them. I find out the brothers are Eric, 9, and Daniel, 6, and they are really excited about going on a plane. The boys start having a quiet conversation about Minecraft. The mom behind me thanks me, and we actually have a nice chat about me previously working in the special needs school and how fun it was. An hour and a half later, I am boarding my plane and I see the tired mom like 5 rows back from where I was seated. She's at a window seat and she's already passed out. I sit and about 5 minutes later, I see the dad and the 2 boys coming on the plane. The first kid, Daniel, sits down next to me and dad pauses for a moment just staring at me. After a minute, I'm just like, is something wrong? I crap you not, this man proceeds to take the boarding pass out of his second son's hand, swap it with his, and tell his son to sit in the aisle seat. He then bolts to the row his wife is in. Once the disbelief wears off, the boys start asking me questions about the plane and snacks and the TV mounted in front of them. I am so exhausted, I don't even fight it. I show the older one how to turn on the TV on the seat in front of him and tell the boys, Miss Mindful is really sleepy like your mom, so I am going to take a nap. Both of them tell me to have a nice nap and I pass out. I wake up 2 hours later to my tray down with a mini water bottle and a bag of cookies on it. Apparently, my new friends thought I would want a snack when I woke up. Great kids. 30 minutes before we land, there's a commotion behind us and what sounds like running. All of a sudden, formerly asleep mom is very much awake and looking over both kids to make sure they are all right. Both of them mention how they have been watching Moana, so they are perfectly fine. Mom then shoots her husband the neutral face of displeasure. If you don't know what that is, Google the fresh off the boat clip of it. When we get off the plane, Mom follows me to the bathroom to apologize. Apparently, she took some medication to help ease her anxiety with flying, but it just knocked her out. Can't be anxious if you're unconscious, I suppose. Her husband was supposed to sit with the younger boy while the older one sat with her. She freaked out when she woke up and saw her husband sitting beside her. In her drowsy state, she thought her husband had forgot the children back at JFK, hence her panic. Apparently, her husband thought it was a good idea to leave them with me because he heard me talking about working at a school and figured they would be fine with me. She apologized, and when we got out of the bathroom, she made her husband apologize for abandoning our children with a stranger. The whole walk out to the pickup area, she was reminding her children about stranger danger and how they need to be careful in big places like this. Daniel gave me a paper heart he folded out of a New York City brochure, so I have a new best friend now. Lol. Give my child your insulin pump. So I'm a type 1 diabetic. This means that my body doesn't produce any insulin and I have to get it from an external source. The source that works best for me is a pump, which is connected to my body. Without insulin, I would die a rather nasty and painful death. I can disconnect the pump for short periods to shower, change, etc., but 99% of the time it's connected to my body. I usually wear the pump on my waistband. This allows me to easily access it and make changes to my insulin as needed. I was over at my mother-in-law's house when my pump had an alert. My blood sugar was trending low, and this can be quite serious, so it's a loud and demanding alarm. I cleared the alert and grabbed a few fruit snacks to raise my sugars. My 5-year-old nephew heard the alert and asked me what it was, and I told him. I explained that it's a medical device that I wear to keep me healthy. He considers this and holds out his hand, demanding to see. I refuse, since it's a medical device that I need to live. Beyond that, he's not gentle with anything and breaks most of his toys very quickly. I tell him no again, and knowing that he rarely hears that word, move my pump from my waistband to clip it onto my bra. This way, he can't just grab it, which is absolutely what he would do. He starts crying and wailing, so his mother, my sister-in-law, comes running in. She screams at me, asking what I did. I just shrugged and said that I told him no, he couldn't have my insulin pump. She scoffed at me and told me to just hand it over. I can go without it for a little bit, and my nephew deserves to see it. I should be stimulating his natural curiosity instead of trying to hamper it. I refuse again and tell her to drop it. It's not going to happen. But he's a child. Now, I've dealt with them before, so I know that she's not going to be able to drop it. I said no to her child, and that's unforgivable. I'm getting a headache from the screaming, so I just turned and left. I didn't need to be there anymore, so I went home. I'm sorry that I'm not willing to risk my health and well-being just to entertain your child. Oh, wait, no, I'm not sorry. Karen demands I stop watching my movie on a flight. The title is pretty self-explanatory, but a little context. Me and my mom are visiting family for the summer, so we had to fly. Karen and her son were seated behind me and my mom on the plane. Now, I love musicals. The one I'm currently obsessed with is the Sweeney Todd movie adaptation because I finally got around to watching it, and goddamn do I love it. So of course, I downloaded it for the flight. I was watching the movie, headphones on, enjoying myself. I had no idea that the Karen's entitled little crotch goblin was watching also through the gap in the seats. When Sweeney makes his first kill, of course, it's full of blood, and I hear the tiny little scream from the crotch goblin. Karen, of course, tends to her precious angel and demands I turn off my movie because it scared my little baby. Yes, she actually made the word baby longer. I told her no, I wasn't going to do that, and why was her kid even snooping on my movie in the first place? It was her job to make sure her kid was occupied enough to where he didn't bother other people. I wasn't disturbing anyone, and I was minding my own business, so I wasn't going to change my movie on my phone to satisfy her bratty kid. Meanwhile, the kid was yelling, "Make her change it, mommy," over and over again. Neither of them were wearing their masks correctly either, so annoying. The Karen, being a Karen, immediately calls a flight attendant and tells her that I refuse to stop watching my ungodly, gory horror movies and was showing them to her kid. I rolled my eyes and the flight attendant asked me what happened. I told her I was just watching my movie when all of a sudden I noticed this kid was snooping at my phone from between the seats. She told the Karen that there was nothing she could do and suggested that she give her child an activity to do so he didn't see anything he wasn't supposed to be seeing. Karen pouted and ended up giving her kid her phone. Sell your property to someone who isn't my daughter? I'll get you expelled. When I was in university, I bought myself a longboard to get around campus. A lot of the students were doing it and I thought it would be easy. Well, after a few falls, I changed my mind and switched to a bike. I figured that if I wasn't going to be using it, I might as well sell it to someone who would. I posted it on Facebook Marketplace at a good price and had a few people interested right away. The first person to contact me was happy to meet my price and available to meet right away. I updated the listing to pending offer and drove out to meet the buyer. She liked the board and purchased it with no bargaining. When I got home, I had a message from a high school girl asking if it was still available. Sorry, no, someone just bought it. No, you have to go get it back. I love this longboard. It's perfect for me. Sorry, it's sold. I am no longer the owner. I don't have it. Ask for it back. Tell the buyer that you changed your mind. Offer $20 for their trouble and I'll up the price. I just wanted to end the argument, so I said I'd follow up with the new owner and ask them if they would be interested in selling it to the high schooler for a little more. I contacted the buyer to let her know that someone was inquiring about the longboard and was willing to pay a little more. I asked her if she'd like the contact details in case she wanted to make an easy $20. The new owner thought about it and said no, she wasn't interested. Fair enough. So I contacted the high school girl to let her know that I checked with the new owner and that they were not interested in selling. This is your fault. I feel like you've just kicked me in the gut. You're a terrible person. I was in the mood for further chatting and blocked her email. Fast forward 1 week and I had an email from the high school girl's mother. My daughter tells me that you promised to sell her a longboard but changed your mind and sold it to someone else. That's unacceptable. Nope, your daughter asked me if I could sell her a longboard after I had already sold it to someone else. The posting noted that it was pending pickup when your daughter reached out to me. Sorry for the confusion. No, you will get my daughter that longboard. You're going to compensate her for the pain and suffering you've caused. You'll be giving the longboard to my daughter for free. Look, lady, I don't own the longboard anymore. Someone else bought it. Then go get it. I know the dean of your university. If you don't deliver the longboard to me by the end of today, I'll get you expelled. Do you really want to lose your chance at having a good job over a longboard? You'll do the right thing or else. I stopped responding because that was absolutely ridiculous. I didn't block the email though, and the next evening I had another treat. I went to complain to the dean. Your time at the university is limited. While I was there, my daughter saw someone riding her longboard today. How dare you sell it? You'll be sending us $500 for a brand new one. After all, you won't be needing your money for tuition next semester. My address is blank. You better deliver that money or else. What's your phone number? Text me at this number when you're coming. Well, That night, I went for a little ride and drove by their home. I took a photo of the 2015 BMW 228i convertible in their driveway and posted it on Craigslist for $500. I asked that interested buyers text the entitled mother's number and promptly blocked her email. My friend texted a few days later to ask about the car. Apparently, the entitled mother is responding to everyone thinking that it's me and demanding that they come with the $500 and a new longboard for her little angel, but that she's not selling the car. By the way, the dean never called me to his office, and I graduated without issue. A guy breaks into my car, dies, and somehow it's my fault. I live in the US, but I'm an immigrant from the Philippines. This happened 4 to 5 years ago when I went back home alone for a month-long vacation. I rented a house with no parking spot for a month, and my cousin let me borrow her rarely used car that I had to park on the street. I was only there for a month, so I was almost always out and about meeting friends and relatives to make the most of my stay. One day at noon, I walked out to the car to find the door open and a strange guy sprawled over the driver's and front seat, puke spread all over the dashboard, and what looked like severe nosebleed. I was angry at first, but when I realized the guy had no pulse and was not breathing, I administered first aid and called an ambulance and the cops. I also needed to call a mechanic because the car battery was dead. I later found out that the car alarm went off until the battery died, and I slept through the alarm. I'm a heavy sleeper. So I had a trashed car to wash, a battery to replace, and a police office to visit. Fun. The guy was pronounced dead upon arrival, and initial findings suspected illicit drug use. The cops suspected the guy to be a junkie trying to steal the car, but had OD'd in the middle of it. Apparently, the place I rented was surrounded by slums and known as a hive for illicit drug use and sales. A sad story, to be sure. This being the Philippines, I was adverse to pressing charges. Slow as flip justice system, and who would I even press charges to? And at that point, I kind of felt bad for the guy, and I just chalked it all up as a bad experience. 4 days later, at around 8 p.m., an older couple, claiming to be the parents of the guy who died, with several tannods, which are basically community police, came for a visit. At first, I thought they were there to apologize or make amends on behalf of their son, but lo and behold, they were asking me for money. I was irritated at first, but then I thought money must really be tight, so I tried to be understanding and polite, but it was still a firm no. I understand that a guy died, but it was through no fault of my own. After that, all hell broke loose. The previously calm mother cried as loudly as possible and tried to scratch me. The father tried to grab my shirt and wanted to punch me. Thankfully, the tannods were impartial and herded them away from me, all the while they were insinuating I had something to do with their son dying. I was a bit shaken and genuinely just wanted to get away from there, but I made the mistake of putting that off until the next day. At around midnight, I was awoken to the sound of breaking glass and metal being pounded. They made enough of a racket to wake me up. About 4 or 5 guys were destroying the car and spewing all profanities they could muster. I called the cops and went to stay at my cousin's place. In the end, I had to stay 2 weeks more than I planned. I helped the cops try to investigate my case and paid for the damage incurred on the car. To add insult to injury, I never got my deposit on the house rental back. The house wasn't even damaged or anything. The end of the investigation resulted in 3 people caught for destruction of property and grave coercion. Aside from the profanities, they were also threatening me to pay up. Thank goodness the rental had a sturdy fence. A neighbor also presented themselves as a witness. The last I heard, they also had prior offenses that got stacked on top of my case. The parents were not charged. Neighbor lady is mad I won't let her kids use my pool unsupervised. I just moved into a new place with a pool out back. A neighbor lady comes up to the fence the other day while I'm having a beer and doing some yard work. After the greetings and whatever, the rest goes like this. The people who lived here before would let my kids use the pool in the summertime. They're really sad about not being able to use it anymore. Why guilt trip me? Just ask. Oh, well, I don't mind. As long as you're there, I can't watch them. Well, the last people would watch them because their own kids were there too. They'd just sit out back. Okay, but I can't watch your kids. If they're going to be in my pool, you have to be there. I don't have time. I don't know why you can't just sit there and watch them so they can swim. I had no idea how to respond to this. She caught me so off guard. Now, I think I need to change the lock on the gate because I'm afraid she has a key and will send her kids over alone. I don't have a problem with the kids using the pool, but I don't want to babysit the kids of someone I don't know around water. The new neighbors. Well, I had a heck of a weekend that should have been nice and relaxing. To start, I went to visit my parents this weekend, who are both just yes. My parents live in a fairly expensive and safe public neighborhood that they retired to after a long career life. Nice school in the community, a few community pools, a few trails in the same area. The average homes here are around $1.5 million, but because it's a public community, meaning it has no gate to enter, it picks up crime every few years. Lately, there have been break-ins near the top area of the community. When there is crime in a normally safe area, this can put some people on edge, reporting everything. My mom got reported for walking the family dog at 7 p.m. on the same loop she has done every day at the same time for the past 5 years. A bit on me. I'm 6 foot tall, big beard, bald head, moderately built, and tend to wear button-down shirts when I'm not working. Where my story begins is just outside my parents' place. Since it's a public community, all the streets are public as well. It isn't illegal to park here if you aren't a resident. It's just out of the way of anything but homes, so there isn't really a reason anyone who isn't visiting or living here to park here. I have a brand new Chevy Colorado ZR2, which is a truck. I parked it literally outside my parents' house, and it is visible from their living room window, which is where we were sitting and talking. I'd say about 45 minutes later, a tow truck pulls up and starts hooking up to my truck. I ran out yelling obscenities. The tow truck says they had a call about an illegally parked vehicle. After explaining that it's a public area and it is by no means illegal to park here, I asked for the contact info of the reporting individual. I didn't get much, just a first name, Karen, just for the sake of the story. I asked my parents and they gave a fair-sized frown like they had already knew it had to be her. My parents had new neighbors that moved across the street a few months back. I'll save some of their stories for another time. I'd rather not get too sidetracked. I walk over to the house, see various toys and such all over their front side of the house. A bit messy, but I was a mess as a kid too. Knock knock, no answer. I ring the buzzer, which is one of those Ring cameras. I then hear a bit of yelling at her kids to stop running around. Now I know she's home, so I just kept ringing the door. As I'm waiting, I notice that she has multiple cameras on me, which is important later. She finally answers the door. She asks me what I want in a bitchy tone. In a calm voice, because she seemed a bit annoyed already, I said, "Why did you call a tow truck on my vehicle?" "You shouldn't be parking there. I've never seen you before. It's illegal to park here if you're not a resident. We don't need convicts around here looking for homes to case." Convicts? What the duck? Why the duck would you think that? This is a public street. I can legally park here anytime I wish. I'm visiting my parents and I have a right to park here without being towed. Leave my truck alone or I'm not even going to elaborate. I walked away. Not 10 minutes later, I look into the window to see two boys, maybe 10 years old, egging my truck. I ran outside, grabbed the hose, and sprayed the boys and my truck down. Thank God for a thick wax coat. Guess which house those two boys ran to? I decided to leave it be. I'm leaving in 30 minutes anyways. 15 minutes later, a police officer walks in front of our door. I open and talk with the officer. "Is that your truck?" "Yes, it is, officer." We received a report that the owner of that truck was driving recklessly in the neighborhood and almost ran over 2 children. After getting out of the vehicle, he yelled at the children and proceeded to hose them down with a strong water hose. "Officer, that's a heck of a story. Would you be interested in coming into my parents' home and we'll pull up the cameras while I explain my side of the story?" He accepted and we entered the house. We viewed my parents' cameras and I explained the sequences leading up to the current situation. I explained the full conversation I had with Karen, including her insinuating that I was a convict and that I partially made a threat. I apologized that I should have caught myself sooner. I also mentioned the multiple cameras Karen has at her door. "Thank you for your time. I may be back in a bit after I have a talk with your neighbor." 20 minutes and a bit of yelling in the background later. "I've talked with the neighbor about her and her children's actions. Will you be interested in pressing charges for the destruction of property?" "No, officer, they're just kids, likely doing what Karen told them to. Were you able to check her cameras?" "All right." "No, she denied access. She shouldn't be bothering you again, but if she does, please don't hesitate to call the non-emergency line and ask for myself directly." I left not long after. So far, there hasn't been any retaliation against my parents. Entitled mother screams at a best man because her son wasn't invited to the wedding. Now this happened a few months ago and was told to me by my grandma. Listen to your grandparents. They might have a story about Karens and that will be worth it. Anyways, I live in a small town which doesn't need a lot of people to take care of. But there's this one guy who everyone knows because he's always willing to help around, be it big or small. A few months ago, this guy got engaged and was preparing the reception. This guy had a lot of people who came for the wedding because everyone was happy to attend. Obviously, he couldn't invite everyone, so there were a few people who were left out, but most of them understood. Emphasis on most. A few days before the wedding, the best man was chosen and asked to organize the reception. He was happy to do it and got started right away. He was also in charge of invitations. This part is important. The wedding came and went, and it was beautiful. A few days later, someone went up to the best man for a chat. Enter entitled mother. Now, this lady was old and had a son, but because of the limited space at the wedding and because the groom barely knew him, he wasn't invited to the wedding. Now, apparently, this made the guy sad, and when he told his mother, she was furious. She walked up to the best man, and this conversation happened. "Hi, entitled mother, what is it?" "Why didn't you invite my son to the groom's wedding?" "Because they aren't very close, and there was limited seating at the wedding." "So? My son would be happy to stand." "That's not what I meant. Listen here. You better apologize to my son or I'll stop making banners for the festivals." This lady apparently made the banners we would use for our small festivals, but nobody asked her to make them. She just sort of started making them and giving them to the church to hang up. She wasn't even paid for this. You do that as volunteer work. If you stop making them because your son wasn't invited to the wedding, I don't think anyone would really care. But there's another reason we didn't invite him. "Oh yeah? And what's that?" During the bachelor party, he insulted the groom behind his back and the groom ended up hearing him. And they haven't really talked at all since. There would be no reason to invite him if all he would do is crash the celebration with his insults and jealousy. At this point, the entitled mother was almost speechless, until she put a smug look on her face, which she tried to hide but couldn't, and said, "You don't have any proof. You're just jealous of him because he's so smart and handsome." And this is where it was the best man's turn to put that smug look on his face. Actually, shockingly, there are a lot of videos taken at the bachelor party, so I do have proof. He slowly took out his phone and showed her a video of her son insulting the groom and everyone else in the room. The entitled mother said one thing before stomping her way back home. "I hope everyone at the wedding dies." Spoiler alert, no one died. The moral of the story, listen to your grandparents. They might have some interesting stories to tell. Happy 4th of July to you too, you selfish witch. Let's jump right in. My husband's entitled mother is absolutely notorious for doing these things in this order, constantly criticizing and guilt-tripping us about not visiting enough, asking us to appear at her house on a certain day. We call and text that day before leaving her house to confirm arrangements. She says yes. We drive the hour to her house. We arrive and she is not there. Yes, at the appointed time. We are expected to wait for her to get home. Sometimes it's 4 or 5 hours. Sometimes she never comes back at all. During this interlude in passive-aggressive hell, sometimes she responds to us on her cell phone. Often she doesn't, and my husband wastes half his day off waiting in her empty house. Sometimes she eventually comes back, sometimes she does not. After experiencing this a few times with my dear husband, I now give her 20 minutes, then we leave. Several hours later, when she finally arrives home and does not see us patiently waiting, she starts texting angrily about, "Why weren't you there? And why didn't you call me?" We were there. We did call her. She sends passive-aggressive texts for the next 4 to 10 days, absolutely infuriated that we did not spend all day waiting for her. There is a variation of this where she says she's coming to my house. It's usually her idea because, duh, I know she's about as reliable as a dead cat. In that version, we clear one of dear husband's days off for her. We miss out on other things we'd rather do. We cook food to feed her dinner. We clean the house and stress all day instead of relaxing. And then she either doesn't show up at all, cancels just before she was supposed to arrive, or sends a string of texts and calls, lots of texts and calls, about how her life is hard and she's busy doing things, and okay, she guesses she's not coming. She does this on my son's and dear husband's birthdays. She does it at the holidays. She does it on summer weekends when we all could have been doing something else. So, okay, I guess I'm partly to blame for what happened yesterday, July 4th, because I know what she's like, and in all the busy of the weekend of the 4th, we make it to fireworks, a barbecue, and 2 different birthday parties in 2 days. I forgot to have a backup plan in case Grandma bailed on our plans. More fool me. To fit her into our crammed weekend, we cut out some much-needed quiet family time, naps at our house, before we went to the fireworks at 10. We had been planning this with her all week. Dear husband texted to confirm before leaving our house an hour away. She said yes. We arrive, and guess what? The witch isn't there. She decided to go out on her boat instead. It was 90+ degrees. It's 6 p.m. and we've got 4 hours to kill before fireworks. We can't wait in the heat, and I am not going to wait all day in her house with my son, who is being blown off by Grandma yet again, and who didn't get a 4th at all last year because of COVID. We don't have enough gas or gas money to drive home, sleep till fireworks time, and drive back. So I took him swimming. I had to buy shorts for both of us to swim in because we had on nice new clothes for Grandma's dinner she was supposedly having us over for. Thank God Walmart is cheap. It was too hot to not swim, so we are splashing around and actually having a great time, and about 3 hours later, the frantic texts and calls began. She is furious because, "Why didn't you call me? And why didn't you answer my text? And are you coming over to eat or not?" I made dear husband turn his phone off, and we ate McDonald's for dinner and went to a completely different spot to watch fireworks than we usually do. It was on the river, and the sunset over the water was absolutely beautiful, and we had tons of fun giving each other silly internet quizzes. Great memories for my son, and that's what really matters, not his super selfish grandma. Entitled mom thinks my baby's birthday is her day. Okay, so first off, I'm writing this on my phone, so if formatting is off, I apologize. Second, the entitled parent in this story is my mom. Okay, so here we go. Back in April of this year, my wife had our baby. During that time, COVID was still rampant and restrictions were still strict. The hospital rules were that my wife was allowed to have 2 people on file, that could visit her, but only one could be in the hospital at a time. Being her husband and the father of her child, she obviously chose me as her first support person, and then she chose my mom as her second. My wife was high risk, so she had to have a planned C-section. Prior to the operation, I texted my mom, getting ready to go back to the operating room, say a quick prayer. Then I went back with my wife. She ended up losing a lot of blood during the surgery, so her recovery took a really long time. It was several hours before I was even allowed to see her. During my wife's recovery, I was in the nursery with the baby, making sure that everything was okay with him. About an hour into my wife's recovery, a nurse comes in and says, "Hey, there's someone on the phone asking for you. Can I transfer them over?" I say sure, and the phone in the nursery rings, so I answer. "Hello? How dare you not answer me? I've been texting and calling all day." "What do you mean? I don't even have my phone. My wife is still in recovery." "You are a liar. You texted me earlier that you were going back to the surgery room." "Yeah, I did. But then I left my phone in the hospital room so that I could be emotionally supportive to my wife and not be on my phone during the birth of my child." "What? You mean you didn't even take a video of the surgery? I told everyone that I would have videos to post." No, I didn't. And even if I did, they wouldn't be for Facebook." "I can't believe you. Don't talk to me that way. I can't believe that you would do this to me on my day." Then I got tired of her and just hung up the phone mid-conversation. I just didn't talk to her for a while and finally had time to get my phone back. I take some pictures of the baby, send them to my mom hoping she was just being emotional earlier, and give her a call. "Why would you do this to me?" "Do what to you? Push me away like this. It's been hours and I haven't been able to see the baby." "Huh? My wife is still in recovery. You're lucky I'm even able to send you pictures." "I don't care if she's still in recovery. I should be allowed to come see him. This is my day and you are ruining it." "Mama, listen. I love you, but you are not doing this to me today. I'll talk to you later." And I hung up again. Later that day, after my wife had been checked on multiple times, she was back in her normal room and out of recovery. She was able to get up and walk a little bit. We let my mom come see the baby. Remember, while she was in there, I had to leave the room due to the COVID policy. The whole time she was in the room with the baby and my wife, she was complaining about how we pushed her out, left her in the dark, and ruined her day. And she kept me away from my baby by not leaving for more than an hour. I know that this isn't as radical as some of the other stories, but it's still entitled and narcissistic, and trust me, I have plenty more stories of my own mom being an entitled mother. I might just share some more soon. Edit. For everyone saying that I should have protected my wife and not let my mom come in, I agree. In hindsight, I was wrong. I have grown up with her narcissism my whole life, and it has become normalized to me. My mom was calling and texting the whole day asking when she could come constantly. My wife knew that that was going on. We both thought that it was weird and annoying, and we tried to appease her in hopes of keeping the peace and in hopes of her being decent. I was wrong, and I should have put my foot down, and for that I have apologized to my wife more times than I can count. This is John from /bash. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed the video and want to be the first to know when the next one drops, then subscribe, and make sure you click on the notifications bell so that YouTube will show you my videos. We'd love for you to drop a like, share it with your friends, and we will see you in the next one.